It happened. Oh, it's funny. It was 2 weeks before I was laid off from DAZN. And it was a very weird month because there was a lot going on. They had that stupid Jake Paul fight, which I don't even want to talk about. They're ruining boxing like with these stupid cards. But anyways,
Mhm.
um I got a random text and his wife basically accused me of spreading rumors. And I told you the rumors offline. I don't know if
Mm.
I'm really ready to talk about them verbally yet, but you
You
know
don't
what it
have to.
is. Yeah. But she basically was throwing my name under the bus, and as an employer to employee, you should have your employees back. No offense, I don't care if that's your wife. Happy wife, happy life. That's a toxic ass statement. I don't care what anybody says.
Social media has blessed me in so many ways. A lot of times people look at it as toxic. They look at it as a negative. They see a lot of trolls. However, I've had some great friends that I've met through social media. Well, on today's episode is another one, and that's Miss Erika Fernandez. Known as Curls in Sports to the world, she is a journalist, a social media specialist, and a podcaster. And for Erika and I, we both have a common bond, the love of baseball. Now, her New York Mets have had more success in recent memory than my Baltimore Orioles, seeing as they've been to 2 World Series in our lifetime. And for me, they won the World Series the year I was born, while I'm still waiting just to have one championship. Ladies and gentlemen, get ready for our conversation as she discusses her career, including her time covering boxing, baseball, basketball, football, showing why she is in the sports media world a 5-tool player. Ladies and gentlemen, Erika Fernandez. All right, ladies and gentlemen, on the line, as promised, I have one of my good friends. We go way back, starting with Twitter, and that is the one and only Miss Curls in Sports herself, Erika Fernandez. Erika, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for the intro, Brian. And yes, we go way back to the dark ages of Twitter when we would see things that we're not supposed to be seeing on there.
Oh man, yeah, you definitely took it back. Um,
Right?
is really cool. So I remember I was still working at ESPN at
Mm-hmm.
the time,
Yes.
and you
On the
were
social media
writing.
department, right?
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep, social media, and you were writing, and I would always follow, and a lot of times I would read your content, and then if you had, like, to be honest with you, if I saw like you broke some news or whatever, or I would like, hey, this just happened, um, you know, here's reporter Erika Fernandez Curls of
Mm-hmm.
Sports said it, and it had to go through the news desk and all that other stuff, and a lot of it was from that publication you used to write for, which we'll get into
Oh, yes.
later. But how you feeling?
Doing pretty good. Surprisingly, like the past few months have been very much meh. Um, it's a tough feeling, and I think that that's the only three-letter word that can really describe the mood. This year's been something else, and I feel like that's just the new norm, and I hate that sentence so much, but we're always battling like how else do we keep ourselves entertained? Like I just started watching TV again. The only thing I was watching was just sports, but
Mhm.
I stayed away from TV shows because at this point it was just background noise and not even really fully watching it. So I said, let me take a break from TV and all these shows that I was supposed to watch a minute ago. Like I know you've never seen The Wire, and I was watching The Wire at the start
I
of
say season one. I did
okay.
eventually watch season one. I still, it's funny. My boy TJ was telling me the other day, saying, "Look, man, we
Don't watch
teaching
season
people.
2.
Don't."
Don't.
Okay, so I tried, and maybe okay, so skip that one and go to
Yes.
three.
You're not missing anything, I promise you, because
Okay, it
season
did.
2 out of nowhere. It's just they just go into the docks and then they don't even return back to the docks in seasons 3 to 5. But
Okay,
don't watch it.
all
No,
right.
yeah, but
Maybe that's why I stopped. Okay, it makes sense.
yeah, but I'm sorry, but this show and obviously like this year, 2020 season has been an interesting one to say the least.
Well, before we get into everything, I gotta congratulate you. Since now it's public information
Yes.
that you got married. So congratulations. Shout
Thank
out
you,
to your
thank you.
husband.
Yep, he's in the living room right now watching some show, whatever the hell he's watching.
Oh man.
But thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So one thing I definitely wanted to ask you, I was
Yes.
listening to your podcast
And thank you for the
and
advice, by the way.
oh, of course. Um, how in the world did you survive going vegan? And we're gonna talk about your career, but I
Oh
was like,
my
wow, I
God,
got that on my
yes.
mind because I was listening to it, right? And I was
Mhm,
saying, well, maybe Erika did it. Maybe I could try. No,
mhm.
I ain't that disciplined, but this pandemic, I said I gotta drop some weight because I lost weight and then some of it came back on. So I said, you know what? Right now I'm doing no sugar, and that's been struggling.
Oh, wow.
You see,
That's
I
tough.
all water. Only sugar is that goes in coffee because I refuse to drink black coffee. I can't do
Oh,
it.
okay.
But other than that, like no sweets. Even when my wife was cooking the other day, she had juice. I said, no, I'm gonna just drink water. I'm just drinking water and coffee. How
Okay.
did you survive going vegan?
Well, for starters, I have noticed that you've been getting into an amazing shape, so shout out to you.
Thank you.
I've been noticing your journey, and I know that we learned our lesson from, unfortunately, from rest in peace Chadwick Boseman. So once you said, I was like, okay, cool. So this is something I could chime in on because like we have to be much more aware and sensitive because we never know if someone's going through a health issue. But you chimed in on it. You showed a before and after picture. So I'm like, oh, this is great. So to go back to your question, I have no clue how I survived. I was very much moody, a jerk, everything across the board. I have no clue how I did it, but like I spoke about in my podcast, it's the reason why I did it is because I guess that was my first sacrifice as a mother to give myself a more purifying experience for when the time comes for me to be with child.
Hmm.
Whenever that
Wow.
time comes. So I said, all right, let me take this journey. I'm not working, I'm home. Well, not that I'm not working, but like we're always freelancing, doing something. So might as well put the time to use where there's no interruptions, there's no temptation. I had to start saying no to like I think I got invited to I believe like 2 barbecues towards the end of August, and I was like, oh, I can't make it. No, I don't want to be around that because I'm gonna say yes. I'll have a hot dog and a burger, please.
Mhm. Well, that's smart. You know your
Yeah.
limits.
I know who I am.
Yeah. So when did you decide that you wanted to get into the journalism field?
I want to say 2012-ish. That's when the idea kind of sparked in me. And I said, I think this is what you've been wanting to do for so many years. Like, why keep yourself cooped up in this idea? And before then, I was working with a Spanish label. And a lot of the music was, pretty much like the Bad Bunnies of the world. So very much like Caribbean music, and it was very much rinse and repeat, and I got kind of bored of it. But you could say the same thing with sports because seasons go, seasons come, but there's always something that's different. Like a stat could be broken or a stat could be started, like they're the only player for blah 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 to do this and that. But I'm obviously a big sports fan, and a friend of mine recommended to me to start Twitter, and I started my Twitter in 2011. So it's crazy, my Twitter account's going to be 10 years old next year.
Wow.
Yeah. And he said, pick a memorable name that you could kind of go into it and still make a name for yourself. So at the time, I was also on my curl journey because the hair, like I literally fried the shit out of my hair. And I'm sorry for cursing.
You good.
Okay. And at the same time, I was on the curl journey to bring them back because this hair was just fried. It was not just taking the shape. So that's why I said, you know what? Let's do this, curls and sports. And I started to live tweet games. And I didn't even have a strategy behind it, if you really think about it, because a friend of mine pointed it out last June. She's like, you realize that you kind of started your career online, and it hit me. Wow, I did. Like, look how we're talking now. Like, we met on
Mhm.
Twitter, and then we met in 2014, I believe.
16.
Oh, 2016. Okay. Yeah,
Hmm.
and that's when we met. And it's crazy because there's so many other people that we haven't even met, and I'm still in touch with them from those who we met back in DC. And it just makes me wonder, like, wow, this community is huge, and I'm forever grateful for it.
Yeah. Now you studied communications at Fordham, right?
Yes, I did.
Oh, okay. And did you go in knowing that's what you wanted to do before you got to school, or did it occur when you got there?
Yeah, so I definitely wanted to do broadcasting, and then I guess as a kid I wanted to do two things. I wanted to be Queen's DA to help out the people who were wrongfully incarcerated. I have to admit, I guess I had a soft spot as a kid, and I wanted to just make a difference. And then I realized, oh, I gotta go to law school now. I'm out. I'm gonna do broadcasting.
Mhm.
I don't think I have the bandwidth for just to go back to school for another 3 years and then take the bar. Nah, we're not doing that. So broadcasting, I was always intrigued by it as a kid. I remember my pediatrician would ask me, and he would say, wow, you want to be two specific things. Like kids usually say, I want to be a cop, want to be a firefighter, want to be a teacher. And where did you come up with those two? And I have no clue where I got the inspiration to be a judge slash DA or go into broadcasting. But yeah.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
oh wow. So before you I noticed you did some work at the Super Bowl
Yes.
and when it was in New Jersey, and that was like right before we met. What was that experience like?
Yes. Well, it's funny that you say that New Jersey, because like the New Yorker and me, I'm like, well, it was technically New York, New Jersey, because
My
two New
bad.
York teams play there. But you're right, because location wise, you're not wrong. But I remember the logo, it had both New York, New Jersey on it, because all the events were happening in New York, but the big game obviously is across the river and to the right.
That's how
Um,
WrestleMania was too.
yeah,
Yep, the two times they were in 2013 and 2019.
it was
They
at the
did it.
Barclays, right?
No, so it was at the same in MetLife.
Oh, in MetLife, yes. Oh, I'm
And,
thinking like the NXT thing.
yep, the
That's what
NXT,
it is.
Monday Night Raw, SmackDown was all at the Barclays.
Oh, gotcha. Now I understand. But
Yeah.
yeah, but the social media listening, that's what another thing that kind of attracted to me. I was working at another site and kind of just freelancing, but that's when my first exposure to being on the social media waves, where I had to control what people were commenting about it. Like if they had any questions specifically to New York, how to get there,
Hmm.
the weather, where can they purchase jerseys, like any sort of stupid questions, like you name it, I was answering along with the rest of my teammates.
Wow. So was that like one of your first biggest live tweeting moments of your career?
I think so. Yeah, it's definitely the first, but not the biggest. For sure, the first.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then afterwards, so what did you so I guess to say what was the next big thing you did after that?
Damn, that's a good question. The Super Bowl was here, what, 2014, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, it's been a lot. Like I've been really, really, really thankful and grateful for people taking a chance on me, and nothing is really given. You got to earn everything of it. Like and if we both can say this, like there's nothing glamorous about this. Like I saw you on Sunday fully masked, like you were ready to go in DC. Like I saw that, I'm just like, wow, this is literally what we're dealing with. And the fact that you went there and worked, that to
Mm-hmm.
me is beautiful. So I would say I think like working with the Knicks is definitely a big moment of my career, because I didn't realize how the demographic really looked like.
Mm-hmm.
And it was something that people chimed in on, but I think we've been screaming about it a lot more as of late, like since 2015. Like we've been stressing more minorities in the press room. Like I made my first Latino friend in the field 3 years ago. Meanwhile, I've had nothing but support from the Black community.
Oh
And it's
wow.
been like that since day one. Like I could only name one white reporter. And I
Mm.
always have to give him his flowers because he gave me a lot of advice. But if it's the first people that I ever met, it's always been the Black community. And I love that. And even though my features don't show it, I'm Caribbean. So there's definitely some Black in me somewhere. If we do ancestry DNA somewhere down the line, but I don't know how I feel if they have my DNA on file.
Oh man, you are great. Let me ask you this. Being in the New York area,
Mm-hmm.
is it hard to prevent yourself from taking stuff for granted. Like
Hmm.
Madison Square Garden is just, for me, I've never been. So I know
Really?
yeah, and it's the place I gotta go to. The closest I've been was standing outside of it.
Aw.
But I've never been, and as a wrestler fan, everybody says
Yeah.
that's the place you have to see a show because Vince McMahon
Mhm.
sold out, well, his father sold out many shows back in
Mhm.
the day. But is it hard for you not to take stuff for granted when you are there, when it's normal to, and do you get like annoyed when you're trying to go to a game, but you're seeing like somebody like me, a tourist, like taking everything in, like, wow, this is the Mecca.
Well, the New Yorker in me gets mad no matter what, and we got an attitude problem. Like I can't walk through Times Square. If you
Uh-huh.
ask me, if you're like, "Oh, I'm coming up with the wife and kids," I'll be like, "Okay, I'll do it. You guys want to go to Times Square? Cool, but I'm gonna just let you know you're gonna get pushed by other angry people,
Mm-hmm.
including probably myself." But I always take it in because I think it's such a magical place, and even though I'm not a fan of the team, I got a
Mm-hmm.
soft spot for them. I think it's an orange and blue thing,
Uh-huh.
but we'll get into that later. But I'm right there with you. I don't think that you should ever take anything for granted because just because it's a train ride away, who's to say you don't move to like rural OKC and you got to drive there an hour just to get to the arena? Like
Mm-hmm.
that's something that people complain like, oh man, I got to go all the way to Brooklyn. Like you should be happy that you could just get on the train and go to Brooklyn because there's people that are driving from Jersey or Connecticut an hour plus and they still can't even find parking. And when they find parking, they got to pay for it because nothing is free out here.
That's
But
DC. That's Baltimore to DC.
yeah.
And you bring up not being a fan of the New York Knicks. That's how it was for me in the Wizards. It, I
Hmm.
always tell people I'm a Lakers fan, a Wizards
Yes, you are.
supporter. I root for the Wizards to do well because that's more coverage, right? That's more, I'm and the Baltimore in me won't
Hmm.
ever root really heavy and get really invested into a DC team, except the Capitals. I could root for
That's
them,
true.
but so I could definitely understand where you're
Uh-huh.
coming from.
It's true. And it's hard because I agree with you. I have a soft spot for the Knicks, but 99 finals, I'm a Spurs fan. I'm not going to be putting on
So,
the orange and blue.
so how did that happen?
Well, it's my older brother's fault. But
Okay.
then I'm also thankful for it because I think he also has a soft spot for it because he was following Tim Duncan in college and he was babysitting me and my younger brother because at the time
Mm-hmm.
there's a few years of separation. Like he's gonna be 40 this year, not to age him, but he's older than us. So he had no choice but to watch over his younger siblings. And he'd be like, all right, you gotta sit there and I'm doing this. And I said, all right. So I'd be watching games with him as well as my younger brother. So I remember he was a big Tim Duncan fan in high school because that was his
Uh,
size. I think he's class of 99.
yeah.
Definitely aging the hell out of him.
Wait. You talk about your brother?
My brother. Oh
Oh,
yeah,
okay. I'm
yeah.
about to say
Yeah.
Duncan, but
Right?
actually
Yeah,
Duncan was
yeah,
98 as
yeah,
far as
exactly.
college.
Yeah, and then obviously the '99 finals came around, and I remember people being really upset, and I didn't understand it. But that's the first experience of sports. That's the first year I remember sports very, very vividly. And then obviously became the Sammy Sosa McGuire years. I remember that summer super vividly. That's the first real memory of sports I have.
Oh, okay. So all right, so you became a Spurs fan
Thank
through
God.
your brother. But what about the other orange and blue? How did you become a Mets fan? Because I
It's
think
also his fault.
one of the things where you and I connected was the love you have for the Mets is the equivalent to the one I have for the Orioles.
Oh my God. And
Is it safe to say,
it's an age
and
thing.
correct me if I'm wrong, is it safe to say you would trade in all the Spurs championships for one Mets World Series in your lifetime?
Um, I think I'm a bigger Mets fan than I am a Spurs fan, so I think I agree. But it's so it's remember he's older than us. So when he
Mhm,
came to America with my mom,
mhm.
that's he got to see them win in '86. Like my parents weren't even together yet. so
Oh, okay.
so he remembers that clearly, and I'm like, wow, like I'm so jealous. And then 2015 rolled around, and I was in a bad mood for weeks. It was bad.
All right. So
2006, I remember I cried. I was so upset at I think I still am low key upset at Carlos Beltran.
you
But
said '06.
oh six, yeah, remember when he, you know what, let's not talk about it, but
Well, to help, if it may help,
yes.
to be honest, I would say baseball wise, 2003 to probably about 2008 or 9.
Mm-hmm.
It's very blur because
Mm-hmm.
when your team ain't doing good, no matter how
Don't
much you
want to
love a
tune in.
sport, yeah.
It's true.
But for me, it was 96, 98. I mean, 96, 97, and 2016,
Mm-hmm.
where I was, 14 hurt when they lost to those stinking Royals. That
Yeah,
hurt.
I agree. That
But
definitely hurt me too.
um, one Edwin Encarnacion's home run off of Baldo, I walked outside and cried. And I remember, shout out to my boy Aton, who he tweeted, "Dag, I feel bad. I'm so sorry, Brian." Because everybody's sitting on Twitter and they loving it because it's a big
Yeah.
moment and it
You're like,
hurt.
what about me? What's
Yeah.
in your minds?
What's funny is about y'all World Series is that I can remember game one. I'll always remember that because that's when my daughter started teething.
Aw.
And I remember like, they about to start first pitch and you're crying.
And you already had a personal vendetta against the Royals, so you're like, I hope they lose.
Exactly. Which is funny because I actually rooted for them to beat the
Mhm.
Giants the year they beat us. Like I rooted.
I would never, unless they're the Brooklyn Giants, I'm not doing that. I'm not
Right.
rooting for San Francisco Giants. Hell
Yeah,
no.
I rooted for them. I was like, I think because I was so irritated and so tired of the Giants.
Ah, it was
So
too many repeats. That's why I feel. And then 2009. That's why
mhm.
sometimes I wonder what happens in the brains of certain Mets fans. Like, there's no way in hell you could catch me rooting for the Phillies.
Oh.
Like, I knew so many Mets fans, and still to this day, they have no issue
Mhm.
rooting for the Phillies if they're playing the Yankees. And I said, you got to be kidding me. I'm hometown all day, but I do understand Yankee fans can aggravate me every
Yeah.
day.
So yeah, because that's what I was wondering. Because I know some people will say, why root for the Mets if you can root for the Yankees?"
That's rude as hell. But they're not wrong. But then at the same time, like I think that's probably why I'm an underdog fan,
Mhm.
because I hate the fact that we got 27 rings. You realize you weren't even born. I'm sorry, you weren't even around for maybe at least a good chunk of 10 of those. But
It's
anyways,
20.
exactly. Thank you. If anything, I'm being humble. 20. You're
Mhm.
right. So, we got
That's
27 rings. Like, oh, shut up.
so I guess you would have been rooting for the Clippers then had they got past the Nuggets.
Low key, I was rooting for Doc Rivers. I want him to win so bad,
Well, he
but
got one. He won in the despised state in Boston.
yeah, that's true. But I guess like as of late, like he's had such bad luck there in LA, but I wanted him to win another one.
I'm
I
rooting
thought
for
this
the
was gonna be
King.
a year, but no. So I'm assuming you obviously want the Lakers to go all the way.
Yep, absolutely.
Cool. I'm on the
That
same page as you.
huh?
I said I'm on the same page as you.
I appreciate it, and I know
I
that
appreciate the support.
when they do, so I shed a tear when the Ravens won, just a
Aw.
small one. Yeah, not in 2000, in
Okay.
2012, I think because that was my first time like kind of getting to cover sports sort of. I was interning
Gotcha.
at the Baltimore Sun. Got a chance to go to the castle a couple of times. I got a chance to edit a lot of footage from like pressers.
Aw,
So
that's beautiful.
it was like full circle. It was like the perfect season. But I always say if the Orioles win, I know I look, I cried when they won the division championship in 2014. That's why I was so mad because I just everybody knew there was gonna be a year.
Yeah, I agree.
You know,
2006 was supposed to be our year, maybe 2007. I wasn't. I obviously don't remember, but 1988 also could
mm,
have been a year.
how now? What about 2000, the Subway Series? Do you remember that?
I do. I remember. I think I was the only Mets fan in my elementary school, and you know what? Screw it. I said elementary school, but people were talking a lot, and I think that I checked out because it's like, oh, it's a New York team, and I don't think my Mets fandom had developed as much as it was supposed to
Okay.
have.
So I
But
was loud in high school. I was the
yeah,
only person going for the Mets because, in
it's a
Baltimore.
division rival. Nope.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, it's so many freaking Yankees fans down here.
Really?
Absolutely. They for those. So remember, we had a 15-year. We was in the dump for 15 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
So during that time, it was annoying to go to Orioles Red Sox or Orioles Yankees games because
Mm-hmm.
there were more Yankees and Red Sox fans in the stands than Oriole fans.
That's crazy to me.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So you would be watching a game, and I mean, you would be like, if you watching on TV,
Uh-huh.
you would hear people yelling, and you're like, wait, that's the Yankees hitting. Nah, that's their fans. So, and then, a lot of people
They came
from
from the
New York.
Bronx.
Yeah, and then there's a lot of people who moved from New York that's moved down here. So,
Wow.
and I, in 2002, for some reason,
Mm-hmm.
when they got what's his name, Jason Giambi, I started playing with them and actually kind of liking them on video games. So, in 2010, I
He
was
had a great
rooting.
swing.
2009, I was rooting for him, but afterwards, I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that again.
I don't blame you. Like if they end up going, I mean, they technically, according to like the new bubble playoff system, which is still a little bit weird to me, but
Hmm.
they could still very well have a chance to go for it. But they sucked against the Blue Jays, so
Yeah, and the
it
Orioles
was
would
good to
look.
see.
They were showing some promise, then they backed out,
Yep.
and they're losing right now to the the Rays. But yeah,
And the
it's
Rays are in
always,
first, right? I think I saw that.
huh?
The Rays are in first place, right?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Oh,
They're not that bad though. They're just anybody, you know how it is. Anybody in
oh
the
yeah,
division is annoying.
exactly.
Now, you started at Black Sports Online in 2013, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and that's really where how I found out about you. Like I
Mm-hmm.
said, just supporting your writings. I think you and Vashti, Hurt was
Yes.
there around the same
Yeah.
time. Shout out to Vashti, Kiera Luck,
Mm-hmm.
and what was so? Was this the your, I guess, your way to get in the door as far as the Knicks and the Liberty games?
Yeah, well, I'll explain what happened with that. I don't know if you remember, but I used to own a website by the name of Geeks and Cleats. I don't know if you ever saw it come
Yeah.
across. Okay. So my former business partner and I, unfortunately, she was going through some stuff with her family and she just completely went AWOL. And she is not even in sports anymore. I haven't even heard from her in a few years now, unfortunately. I wish her the best of luck, but I still had goals to keep in mind. And Robert at the time was overlooking our website and helping us out as much as possible. And that's one thing I can't deny, despite the BS that happened. But that's,
Hmm.
I guess, where I'm between a sword and a wall. But I decided that it was best for me to speak my truth because you can't just be treating people like this and not expect to get burned for it. Like, no, bye. That's not how we act. But when Geeks and Cleats went down, he literally told me, well, if you want, why don't you come right for BSO? And because I still see the drive, the motivation in you. And I said, you know what, we out, let's do it. So my first event with BSO was the Liberty Games, and then I'm sorry, the Liberty Games, and then a boxing match. So Memorial Day weekend, I believe, of 2015.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was that like? Like just that first time you
Hmm.
went in there.
Well, I was very intimidated because that's one thing that, looking back on it now, and I'm slightly rolling my eyes, even though if you can't guys can't see me, but I'm here like, damn, I should have asked for help. Like, how do I get to the arena? Where's my seat at? Not
Hmm.
try to act like I got it, and it's like I didn't have anything. So that's one thing I've been telling people: don't be shy to ask for help. I don't give a damn. Don't be too proud to beg. And if even beg isn't probably a good word, but don't be too prideful with not asking help. But I remember just walking in. I'm like, wow, I'm really here. I'm really doing it. This is dope. This is going to go on my resume. I'm excited to just be here and be a part of it. And the Liberty games were amazing. And they had a really good season in 2015, too. So that was a good year for me to start because they went to the playoffs and unfortunately didn't go any further. But it was a great exposure. And then that's what led me to also covering the Knicks, the Nets, and NFL as well, because I'm really lucky to say I live in a good area where New York City, Jersey is only an hour away. I could just hop on the train. MetLife isn't too far. It's annoying to get to, but it's not too far. As well as Brooklyn because it's a long train ride, but at least it's accessible.
How was that grind when you are covering the New York football teams? Um, because are they? Is it usually a game every week and they alternate? How does that work?
Well, they alternate, that's for sure. And then sometimes they do Thursday night games and then obviously Sunday night games. But it was a trip because I actually started to feel overwhelmed, but I just still wanted to do it all because I still wanted to put my name out there like, wow, she's covering all this in New York City. And essentially, I was building his New York City market up, which was a good thing for him because then other writers got an opportunity. When I started to get overwhelmed, we split the teams. So I don't know if you know him, but Gerard Hector,
I remember the
yeah.
name.
Yeah, we split. I'm like, yo, do you want the Nuts? Do you want the Jets? Do you want the Giants? And he's like, nah, I'll take the Giants. I was like, perfect, I'll take the Jets. Like, I'll keep the Knicks. The Liberty unfortunately fell short, but that's because they moved up to Westchester
Hmm.
and it was just tough to cover them. And then it became time for me to, and I got the job at the Zone, and I wasn't able to cover day games when they were bought out by the Nets owner. So I'm happy that they're back in Brooklyn. It's accessible. It's a good area. There's a lot of schools, and a lot of kids could get inspired by seeing women playing sports. So I'm happy that they're back down here. But who knows when we'll be able to cover them again as normal. But um, it was tough to go back and forth. Like I think I spent so much time on the train in the past like 5-6 years that's why I would end up writing and doing my work.
Now, you've interviewed celebrities such as Morris Chestnut, Lala, Paris Hilton, Michael Ealy, Charlotte Flair. Carmelo, how could I even forget? Even though it was hard because, you have athletes, but Carmelo, in my opinion, crosses over.
Yeah.
What was it like, and what kind of advice can you give to those out there? Because I've seen your work, and immediately I notice is that you're
Hmm.
natural, but you can also see how comfortable they look when you're talking to them. So, what kind of advice could you give to those out there? Because people do want to. They always look at the glitz and the glamour, but this
Exactly.
is one of those glamour situations we could talk about.
That's a good point because they don't realize like how expensive it is to take these trains. Like media food is not free, guys, and it is hard to pay for things, especially if you're working temp jobs or whatever it is that you're doing. So I would say, and this is the same piece of advice that a friend of mine gave me. He said, pretend you're talking to a friend, like they're just regular people like you and me. And I always wanted to stand out from, especially New York media, like what sort of reputation they have. And I don't like it at all because it's a cultural thing. The majority of media here is nothing. They're just white, and it's the exception of one guy who understands, who is very much an ally, and I appreciate him. And I don't know if you've seen him, but it's Ian Begley.
Mm-hmm.
He's super sweet. He also gave me a lot of advice, and I remember I ran into him at an event with his wife, and I talked him up to his wife, and she's like, wow, thank you so much. It's great to hear from someone, especially a woman, that my husband's helped out a lot. Like they're not really in the field, so you and I could empathize like with our spouses. Like they know what we're doing but not really to the core of it.
Exactly.
Yeah, but definitely just take your time, write down your questions. There's no need for you to do off the dome sort of status. I don't care about it because if I forget a question, I'm gonna be tight. So write it down. There's no need for you. And have a good friend where if you want footage to be recorded, you can rely on them to capture, to zoom in, to know that they don't hear you. They'll tap you on your shoulder like, yo, I can't hear you well, or speak up a little louder because we're struggling to hear you. So Similar to the advice you told me, you're like, yo, I think you should record on Zoom and or Skype because it sounds better. And I said, wow, thank you so much. I appreciate the advice.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up letting, having that cameraman, camera woman know, and also somebody that's not gonna get shell shocked either. Because they will, ultimately, it's
Mm-hmm.
like you represent me. If I'm bringing you with me to these games, to these events,
That's true.
I
To
need you to be on point just as much.
I agree with that. And the support is ultimately what it is. Like people is like, oh, how do you get into games? Who can I email? That's first of all, stop trying to leech off my contacts because that's not how we do it in this business. Like if you, Brian, you tell me, yo, how can I get this? And I'd be like, oh, here it is because I trust you and you're a friend. But
Mhm.
some random Joe Schmo from the internet who's asking, how can I get Lou Williams, which is a real true story that happened 2 weeks ago. I had to kind of
Mm.
put this person on blast. That's mad rude. How do you just assume that you just met me? No, you can't just be asking people to just share their contacts like that. That's not how it works.
It's so annoying. People, I saw a lot. I see a lot of people, and you probably have had this happen. If not, if it's coming, where you have your own show.
Hmm.
Everybody wants to be interviewed. Everybody wants to be featured, and half of the time, it's people that's never been in the media, done anything media like, and
Mm.
they'll say, "Oh yeah, you got to get me on your show. I got a lot to say." Like,
How do you know that's the
no.
topics I want to talk about?
Exactly. The wrestling, oh my goodness, the wrestling community is great for it. Yeah, when you gonna get me on, when you gonna put me on the podcast, man? I could talk this, that, and other.
Do they
No.
even know the name of the Wrestling Realm podcast? I just want them to let me know if they know what it looks like. What's the font?
Exactly.
You know I don't follow wrestling, but I'm like, okay, subscribe, let me listen. You put me on because I don't follow wrestling at all.
Right.
I have respect you for it because there's something that's your niche that's huge, and I'm proud of you for it. But no, why do I look like? Oh, you know what? People just get me tight. That's not the behaviors to be having in a
Yeah,
society.
everybody want to,
Let me
get
approach you.
on.
Yeah.
So, um,
Oh,
oh man, that's a podcast episode in itself.
it is rude and ridiculous behaviors from DMs.
Yeah.
Take one.
But oh man, I gotta do it. I wasn't gonna do it this way, but you threw me an alley oop, so I gotta take it.
Yes, please do it.
Speaking of rude behaviors,
Yes.
when did you know it was time to leave BSO?
I'm so happy that I fed that to you because I didn't even realize it. But you know what? This is why you're a creative and you caught onto it because I didn't even right over my head. I'm happy we're friends. So,
Mhm.
um, it happened. Oh, it's funny. It was 2 weeks before I was laid off from DAZN. And it was a very weird month because it was a lot going on. They had that stupid Jake Paul fight, which I don't even want to talk about. They're ruining boxing like with these stupid cards. But anyways,
Mhm.
um I got a random text and his wife basically accused me of spreading rumors. And I told you the rumors offline. I don't know if
Mm.
I'm really ready to talk about them verbally yet, but you
You
know
don't
what it
have to.
yeah. But she basically was throwing my name under the bus, and as an employer to employee, you should have your employees back. No offense, I don't care if that's your wife. Happy wife, happy life. That's a toxic ass statement. I don't care what anybody says. But
Hmm.
if you know the person enough, like you're able to have a good judgment of character. So those 5 lies that she stated I made up, which were disgusting, it's a red flag to him to not even bother approaching me. Like, no, you bugging out. No, Erika would never say any of that. I'm not even going to bother addressing this with her. And that's something that he did apologize for when everything popped off on Twitter. Um, but it was funny because in January of this year is when I said, you know what, I'm literally out. Oh no, that's a lie. That was another straw that another straw that broke the camel's back. But I decided around Christmas time to I even informed Nick's PR what was going on. I didn't have any hair on my tongues because I said this isn't right. This isn't how you treat your employees. And I'm very grateful that Nick's PR listened to me and they gave me a lot of support. And I know that people say PR teams, whatever it is, that's your opinion, but I didn't have that experience.
Right.
Um, Around Christmas time is when I spoke to Nick's PR, and I also told Robert, and I said, listen, tomorrow's my last game. I don't care what happens. And then he said, why don't you just finish out the season? And I said, all right, I guess I'll do that. And I did the calculations, and I think I only had like 9 games left. So I try to crank them all out. And unfortunately, because of media availability, that's not able to happen. So in January, I noticed that my stories weren't tweeting out with the handle, because that's a feature you could do specifically on WordPress. And I kept it in my back pocket, and I was annoyed. So I said, you know what, let me just ask, because I'm over this. And I was looking for work. So I guess I was just like frustrated overall. And I said, hey, question, why aren't my stories tweeting out with my with my Twitter handle? And he said, oh, my wife is still sensitive to the stuff that happened. And I said, she has no right to be sensitive. And you know what? I'll make this even easier for you. I'm just going to talk to you about work. Don't even ask me to say hi or anything. And shout out to COVID for happening, because it cut my season short. As terrible as that sentence sounds. And
You
I remember,
gotta laugh somehow,
I
right?
know you do, right? And I remember he texted me mid-March when everything was going on. Obviously, New York City was the epicenter. I still think low-key we are, but hopefully not. He texted me, and I just left him on red. Like, no, you don't have to, oh, just checking in because you're in New York. You don't got to do that. If you didn't care about me back in November, why do you care if I have the virus? Let's be honest. And
So he
then,
can blog about it.
exactly.
I'm
And
instigating.
exactly. And then I know that, as Samantha expressed in her tweets, she was waiting to have more proof, because I do have to admit, I took a policy of just deleting things and not having to have quote unquote receipts. But I do understand why people say don't delete everything, because you sometimes do need proof. If you don't want to see it in your phone, at least take screenshots and email it to yourself and hide it in your email or something like that. Put it in an unknown folder, so this way you don't have to interact with it daily. But
Mm-hmm.
once she got those screenshots and she put out a tweet, I was so sick and tired of just, probably is the best word to say, but hiding in the shadows when they knew that I was really still pissed off. And that's what the motivation came from. So I definitely feel partially, I don't want to say guilty, but in charge of it is probably the best word, because this is their freedom as well, because they were so sick of it, so annoyed of it. And I'm proud of them, and they motivated me as well as share my piece of it.
Yeah, I just think it's unfortunate that
Yeah.
when you told, y'all had you thinking the situation squashed, or what, or
Yeah,
at least dwindled down. You still working, but your work isn't being promoted,
exactly. Yeah.
and that's not cool at all.
No, it's not. And what's crazy is that this site could have been something huge. Like, you could have had someone potentially in every city in the country. But here you are living on an apartment that's overlooking the beach, and you talking trash at NABJ that you don't pay your writers. Like, how did I have to find that out? And when people would ask me, yo, do you get paid? I would make them some wild ass excuse.
You would tell
And
me, I'm gonna be straight up. You would just say, "Hey, I'm grateful for the experience."
yeah, exactly. That's what I would say. But that's a BS sentence to say.
I'm not gonna say I was like mad at you, but here's the way I thought.
Yeah.
Right? I always felt like, okay, I think by the time when I asked you again, it was like it
I
was
was more
post
on
Fox days.
it.
I said, okay, I can understand before,
Mm-hmm.
but at this point, you're the staple of the
Yeah,
company. You were somebody that was there all the time.
that's a good
So
point.
I
Yeah.
felt like, as we would say, you ain't green. You
Yeah,
were New York. Let's call
yeah,
it for what it is. He wasn't there. You were New York, unless it was like, I guess it was a big deal, maybe, but you were on the grind. You had the respect of the men and women athletes at the games. They knew who you were. So that's what, for as a friend, I'm like, well, how isn't she being taken care of?
yeah,
And then you like you said,
yeah,
you see it. I remember vividly,
yeah.
and this ain't slander. This is all information. It's
Mm-hmm.
nothing we say or do is going to stop BSO from going wherever it's going, or shut the
Exactly.
website down. But I do remember when the when the move happened for him, and I
Mhm.
was happy. I was like, oh, okay, black man doing this thing, moving from
Exactly.
here
Yeah.
there, cool. But then when I saw all the stuff that came out, and I'm not gonna say it was a hard unfollow. It wasn't hard to hit the unfollow button,
Mhm.
but it was a disappointment that
Yeah.
it was somebody I met at NABJ. We
Mhm.
met via wrestling Twitter over the years, and to see him doing this.
Yeah.
Bad enough, you have the Harvey Weinsteins of the world and all the other people mistreating women, and especially, black women and women of color.
Yeah.
And now one of our own is doing that.
Yeah.
There was a call. There was a time in a BJ recently where you had a few younger reporters tell people, no, we need to hold each other accountable. This can't happen, and then we did the show with the
Mhm.
sports, sexual harassment. I don't play that.
No, not at all. And I think one thing that I have to say is that I stopped thinking just because you have a wife, just because you have a daughter, that means that you know how to treat your opposite sex.
Hmm.
Because clearly that's not it. And it's crazy because it came up on my newsfeed somehow that his wife is pregnant with the daughter. And I'm just like, for a quick second, I said to myself, oh, it's crazy how she's treating women and she's gonna breed a woman. And then I said, you know what, Erica, you need to I'm sorry, you need to snap out of it and realize that just because that there's women in their lives, it doesn't mean that they know how to treat each other,
Hmm.
which is an unfortunate sentence to say. But I'm just happy that we stood up. Like I was very loud and clear and I said, this is all gonna be over when I hear your wife apologize to me. It has not happened and it's been 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah,
Excuse me. Yeah, that's unfortunate,
it is.
Um, but again, shout out to y'all, because when you do speak up, there's always those people that's got to say, "Well, they knew what they was getting into," or how do we know? And I will always say this:
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather take a chance on believing the victim and being
Mm-hmm.
wrong than picking the person who wasn't lying, or picking a liar.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not the liar, picking the predator.
Yeah. It's true. Like we often, especially with celebrities, we're like, no, not him. Or wow, that's crazy. And you're right. Why do we instantly go to victim shaming? Oh, why now? And like I said earlier, Samantha literally said in her tweet, she wanted to make sure she had the receipts before she went and put them on blast. Like she was really frustrated. And I apologized to her too, because I remember that day in the group chat and I had no clue what to say. All I said was, whoop, I'm not going to get involved. But I should have done what Kiara did and said, pause. Why are we talking about her sex life? No, it's not. It shouldn't be a topic.
You know
The
what
view-
though, and that's
yeah.
true.
Mhm.
A lot of times, what happens is we can overlook something, or it's like, it ain't that serious, or they got it, and it's not. I think, and it's not nothing that we should feel down about. We know better, so we do better. I was
Yeah.
in the store yesterday. I was in the bank yesterday. I
Uh-huh.
was actually close to, saying something, but in this situation, a lady had it. Um, the lady asked the guy, who's a, probably 30, 40-year-old white guy.
Mhm.
And she said, can you pull your bandana up over your face? And he says, F off, lady. I'm like,
Oh my God.
and then his mother was like, cut it out. He's like, stupid idiot. She was like, she'd probably say the same thing about you. And I'm sitting there, first of all, how you cursing with your
Mhm.
mother right there? But then he then he went ahead and somebody else came up to him and he said something similar. And he started saying stuff. And I'm starting to get irritated. But then the lady was going back and forth with him. So I was like, well, it's no need to cause a scene. You know what I mean?
Mm.
But you so sometimes that's how it is. You just like, well, maybe we don't have to ruffle these feathers, they
Mhm.
got it themselves. But like you said, we know, like I said, we know better, because we do better now because we know better.
Exactly. Yeah. And the same thing I was able to apply at moments at the zone because I was the only female on the team and unfortunately was laid off, but I feel like I learned so much that I'm still grateful for those who I worked with. But in that environment, especially like in a boxing world, female boxers still aren't respected. So I realized, you know what, I'm not going to let this sort of disrespect, I'm not going to tolerate this sort of disrespect. So of course, I'm going to make sure that I practice what I preach everywhere. So I guess it was a time for me to experience that. And I'm happy that it just is an eye opener, you know?
Yeah. What was your time like there at the zone?
All the time was, it was honestly magical. And that's the only word I could think about it. Um, it was fun. It was great to see something grow from zero to I left, and I think the account had 600 something thousand followers.
Mhm.
I was so proud of the team. I learned so much. They truly helped me, especially with learning at what times to post, learning what goes on Instagram story and not on the post, learning how to use templates, what's a good quote to grab. Like I'm honestly able to say that now because of the team, I can walk away with those skill sets, and it was a great time. I had amazing managers, and I'm happy that they were men of color and they didn't tolerate their white counterparts. It was beautiful to see. My one manager, he was of Egyptian descent, and he would go into these rooms and he's like, how many meetings are we going to have, guys? Like, why are you just wasting our time? And he was very big on promoting black boxers and Latino boxers. And he made sure when he came to, because he grew up in London, and when the company was set up base in New York, he made sure that he wanted to hire someone who's Latino, not Spaniard, because then we would understand the culture. And I said, wow, you definitely studied and did your homework.
Mhm.
Thank you. But it was great. Like my other boss was black man who's still, he's the art director for the Ring magazine, and I learned so much from him. And it was just good times. Like the team was great. We were giving a blank canvas and we made something happen.
That's awesome. When did you develop the love for combat sports?
I think as a kid, because Latino households, we're gonna naturally root for Oscar de la Hoya. My parents loved Mike Tyson in this house. It's from Brooklyn. So
Hmm.
of course they came to Brooklyn when they came to America first. So that was like their little love for him. Um, so it was definitely the household where it started, and like the Mexican boxers, it was a lot of fun to see it growing up, and then to work in the space and being able to work with boxers such as Daniel Jacobs, who's also from Brooklyn, Canelo, who's big Mexican boxer, and other ones who are still building a name for themselves. I think it was a good time.
Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't so my dad watched boxing. He's never been like the avid sports fan to, follow stuff and stats and stuff. But I remember certainly growing up the Tyson fight parties. And, I remember watching him beat Frank Bruno for the title. We didn't
Mm.
we didn't watch the ones against Holyfield. I don't know why. I just maybe my uncle. Yeah, I think maybe if my uncle maybe he didn't have a party or we just didn't go to the party. I do remember the second Holyfield fight because I remember you
Mm-hmm.
remember when you could turn on ESPN News and in the corner they would have like the breaking news or the result, and I remember seeing the when he bit the ear, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but I played a lot of Fight Night.
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah, I definitely played a lot of Fight Night. I wish that's a game I wish they would bring back. I think it would be fun.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's something that a lot of fans at the zone was asking us. They're like, "Oh, when are you guys gonna make a fight sport? We would love to see that." Blah blah blah. But it goes in through one ear out the other. I think it would be amazing to see that return. But let's see if anyone out there is listening is brave enough to develop a boxing game.
Yeah, we
Hmm.
shall see. So now you're with quick out the blocks.
Yes.
How is that? And
It's
what are you doing with them?
Yeah, well, I'm working with Sheena Marie, and she was also a former BSO writer, and I don't want to keep slapping that on us, but she also went through the stuff where she posted her story, and
Mhm.
she's had her amazing blog for a couple years now. She's making a name for herself, and I'm so proud of her. She's done stuff from the big three, with the Panthers. She's covered NASCAR. She's even done, I think, a couple Hornet games, and she's really doing it all. And she was one of the first people I told that it happened everything with. I'm sorry, when everything happened with BSO, and she told me, if you want, just come write for my site. And I said, you know what, we out. Like, I'm there. And we're trying to write feel good stories, nothing clickbait, because at this point you might as well just put what you have to say in the title and not even have anyone click it. Like, we really want to stay away from clickbait stories.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I've been working with her for a few months now, and it's amazing.
That's good. That's good. So before we get out of here, I always gotta ask this question. When did you break through the glass ceiling? What was that moment
Ooh.
where you knew you was good at what you did
Mm-hmm.
and you belong in sports
Well,
or media?
that's a really good question, and it's ironic because I still struggle with sometimes watching NFL, but it has to be an article I wrote for BSO, and I actually, it's two moments, because this one, the second one, I was really proud of. But the first one was, it was regarding Colin Kaepernick's kneeling, and that story got, I think, over 5,000 retweets. Colin Kaepernick tweeted it as well, and my mentions were blowing up between the races and then the supporters. It was not even a fine line. Like, it was one or the other. You weren't, either you hated it or you loved it. And that was the first moment I'm like, oh my God, the story is really doing, like, it's doing really good. I'm so proud of myself. I'm so happy that, I took this initiative to do the story. And I would say the second thing would be, working at the Zone. I had an opportunity to really express my creative freedom. And I was so proud of one, my boss and I, we were the ones that were on top of Hispanic Heritage Month and also Black History Month. And we made sure to elevate our boxers, nothing that would make them look ridiculous. Not that anyone would show up in blackface, I hope, but we're not going to try to make fun of anyone's features, because that's not what we're about. Like, we were there to control the space because we wanted to make sure to not be disrespectful. So
Mhm.
it was really great to be like, okay, let's have Muhammad Ali looking like that coming out of the logo, BLM, and then at the same time Black Lives Matter. So it was great to see that. And with Hispanic Heritage Month, like, I got total creative freedom. Like, no one told me what to do. Not even at all. And the same thing said with Black Sports Online. I'm sorry, with Black History Month
Mhm.
at the Zone. Like, my boss was like, let's do it, come up with ideas. And I said, wow. And I went looking through other accounts and seeing what everyone else did, and it was very much half-assed. It's like one or two posts, and then that's
Mhm.
it, either the first day of the month, the last day of the month. So then we really dug deep into it. And I would say the third part of that, I'm sorry, the second part of the Zone was probably interviewing Oscar de la Hoya, which was very much an insightful interview. And I remember you had told me, you're like, it's not that long, like, stop thinking about time. But
Mhm.
it was crazy because I said, you're right. And he was very much candid. Like, the fact that he talked to me about his mother who passed, like, I still can't believe that he was sitting there calmly talking about it, as opposed to, having his voice crack, considering it was such a tough time for it to lose his mom. But yeah, those are definitely the two times.
Yeah, one thing I liked about that, because when you said, "Hey, it's a little long," I didn't want you to put a disclaimer like that to
Yeah.
make people think, all right, I'm not gonna watch this right now. Come back and watch it later. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And I remember when I was watching it, you get so sucked up into the story before you know it's over,
Yeah,
which
it's
is,
true.
it's a good thing. It's like, because so for me, I never watched like a De La Hoya fight live.
Yeah.
Like I said, we did because we didn't watch too much boxing, but my first time finding out about him was the first Knockout Kings when he was the guy on the cover. So then that made me like kind of like look for his content. And then
Mm.
we didn't have HBO or Showtime, so I would see like his highlights. But Knockout Kings was what introduced, because he was, like I said, the first person on the cover. It was him, and mind you, that was like a big deal for Knockout Kings in '99. It was the first like boxing game on PlayStation and Nintendo 64, but it was also like
That's true.
you could it was one that had like current boxers and legends. So that was the thing. But getting a chance to like watch that, I was like, wow, this is like
Mm-hmm.
so cool, you know?
Yeah. Like there was a fight that the zone hosted, I think it was Memorial Day 2019 down there.
Hmm.
And now that I think about it, I should have asked you like, oh, do you want to go? Because I could have hooked you up with tickets like that. You can enjoy that atmosphere because
Oh man.
once you're there, no, it's true. Like I like now it's hitting me stuff that but you forget to
It's
ask when
all
you're
good, yeah.
yeah, but being at a boxing, oh my God, at a boxing event, like there's nothing like it, especially like I was there for the Anthony Joshua and Andy Ruiz fight
Hmm.
when he knocked him down. Like that's something I'll never forget. And people like that is probably like the best modern day fight to date.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. See, I went to one boxing event and me and
Mhm.
Kelsey covered, but due to Jack and I forgot the other person. But that was in DC.
Okay.
And then one because Floyd Mayweather was there and
Hmm.
his the lady that boxes with him, they ended that fight quick. Like she just I think she hit the girl 3 or 4 times. The one thing I was disappointed was that nobody got knocked down the whole night.
Oh wow. And that's what's when if you get a chance, I mean, whenever the hell these things return to us, but a Deontay Wilder fight, despite him losing to Tyson Fury, it
Uh-huh.
when he knocks down those guys, you can hear the punch and then the thud on the floor. Oh my
Oh man, I
God.
can imagine.
And boxing media is still very much, I'm sorry, boxing PR are still very much strict
Hmm.
with cheering. So I remember a good friend of mine who works with Swanson Communications. He was like, everybody sit down. You know that there's no cheering in the press box. So I stood because I wasn't even cheering. I was just like, what? And I'm typing away, like, because I have to make sure to post the story, post the reactions and everything, get it out because the fight already ended.
Hmm.
But a few others were on their feet and just in shock. And that's one thing I will say. I've never seen that at other PR. Like while sitting near PR, like no one's ever really regulating that. You kind of know not to cheer in the press box.
Yeah.
But that's the first time I've seen it.
I can imagine it's different because you see somebody get knocked down, that's their
Yeah, that's
normal
huge.
reaction.
World star.
Yeah. Or I've seen I've been to a baseball game when somebody hits a game winner home run.
Oh my God, that's huge.
Yeah, and you do see
Yep.
people kind of cheer in the press box. My first time I went to a Big Three game, I
Mhm.
was like I was technically so we went with NABJ, so they had like a press row lined up for us, and Nate Robinson hit the game winning shot. And I
Oh
remember
wow.
we all was like, whoa, I actually tweeted the video and it was crazy. But just to be there, it was just like watching him hit that game winning. It's like, man, this is crazy.
It's true. I was at a special game winner. I remember I was at the 2009 when the Yankees beat the Angels and went to the World Series. That was a
Hmm.
very exciting game. I was like,
Oh.
wow, I'm here, but I'm not gonna say let's go Yankees ever. No offense to Yankee fans out there.
Hey, offend them.
Right? You're right. Like, why am I being so considerate with them when they're not even considerate with the rest of us?
Exactly. But all right, let the people know where they can find you.
Of course. Well, thankfully, and with the motivation of friends just like you, Brian, I have finally started my podcast and I'm in episode 5,
Whoop whoop.
right? It's on everywhere, from what I believe it's on everywhere, but it's called the Curls and Sports Podcast. It's spelled normal, nothing crazy. And on Twitter and Instagram, same name, Curls and Sports. Feel free to message me with any topics you guys might want me to discuss. I'm very much a random person because we got to keep it spicy.
I was gonna say though, real quick, let the people know, kind of give them a summary on what
Yes.
they can expect from the Curls and Sports podcast.
Yes. Well, the podcast is like we started off, I was talking about my veganism to then talking about OBJ and then talking about Pat Mahomes' engagement ring, which then led me to talk about engagement rings.
Which was great, by the way, because I
Thank
was like,
you.
oh, I didn't know about this.
Yeah, when I'm telling you, my father put me on, and then when my actually, it's still a weird word for me to say, but my husband told he was telling me his journey while he was ring shopping, and then I said, "Wow, like you really put me on." So I said, "You know what? I'm gonna take this friend's advice." A fellow Twitter friend also told me, he's like, "You know, this would be a really good topic for you to talk about on your podcast." And I said, "Wow, thank you." writes
Yeah.
it down and then made sure to take my notes because I didn't want people to forget.
Yeah, well,
Mhm.
that's great, Erica. I really, really appreciate. This was so much fun. you know,
Thank you. I had so much fun too.
getting a
Appreciate you.
chance to catch up.
Yes.
Um, everybody, make sure y'all follow her. I'm telling you, as a podcast consumer myself, uh, her show is definitely in the rotation. So
Thank you. Right back at you. I love the one where you talk with your grandfather. I even text him like, wow, this was, and you're about to push your year too.
yeah, yeah, it is coming up. I was
Yep.
thinking things were going so crazy. I'm like, man, I might need to take a break. But yep, December will make this show a year old.
Yep.
Break it break it down with Brian H is 2.5 years old. So
Hmm.
I've been rolling.
Yeah, you sure have been, and nothing stopped you. Like, I think that, we don't give ourselves enough credit, and you are one of the hardest people, harder working people I know in the industry. Like, the fact that you were there on Sunday and you took your precaution, and I'm sure you're like, damn, should I even go? Like, what if I'm exposed? So I know that you took all the steps and you said, nope, let me go and let me just be safe.
Yeah, they tested us. We had to get tested.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, Saturday, Friday, we took because I did utility work with the
Mm-hmm.
union, IBEW union. So they'll
Mm-hmm.
contract us for CBS or Fox Sports.
Okay.
So Friday morning or afternoon, whenever, you had to take your temperature. First of all, they sent us a fanny pack. I call it a care package. It had our own utensils
Oh,
if we
wow.
wanted to use them. They had a couple masks, and thermometer. And
Wow.
so we had to take our own temperatures,
Okay.
and we had to log it into the computer on for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Then we had to get there at 6:45 in the morning. They gave us the test, and then we had to
Oh my
wait an
God.
hour. And after we waited, that's when they
Was it
gave
the
us,
nose swab one or no?
yeah, just no swab. It wasn't too bad.
Oh, oh, that freaks me out when I see it.
Because
It for
what
me.
the lady said that it's much better than what it used to be because they don't have to go all the
Mm,
way back.
okay.
Thank God.
Yo, for real. They still do it around here like that. I saw
Uh,
there's a testing center I walked by and they
hmm
were just outside in tents and I saw someone, it was going all up in their nose. And I'm like, at this point you might as well just poke the person's brain. You back already.
yeah, so we did that, and then afterwards, um after an hour, if you're negative, they give you your credential. So they gave us a credential, and then I mean, they took our temperature again. Once we was walking through, they actually took our temperature twice when we was walking through
Mhm.
media check-in. So they're very careful. Even the guy, when he was giving like the instructions, he told us like one of the things is we can't be within 12 feet of the
Gotcha.
players. Now, granted, I was on parabs, so by me being in the end zone, I didn't have to worry about it because
Hmm.
unless somebody caught like a deep pass. It was one part I thought where Haskins was going to try to hit the tight end, and I told the guy who pulls up the net, I said, "Okay, so here's the game plan.
Don't
If that
breathe.
if that ball come over here, I'm coming across you. So
Okay.
just move, just stay." He said, "All right, well, if he does that, I'ma stand right here." I said, "All right, so we're on the same page." you know,
Gotcha.
Granted, it was like I
Either.
mean, it would have been out of bounds, but still, um,
No, you got to prepare for that because it's true. Like, especially you're in the open field, there's no
mhm.
rules. You're in their space technically.
Yeah, so it was cool though.
Oh, I'm so happy you got to experience that. It's weird, but
I kind of like it better with no fans with
really.
I- for what I was doing with the parabs and stuff, because one, I knew the sound it was easy to follow the sound, which is
Mhm.
not hard with the players there. I mean fans there because but it just you ain't had to worry about people yelling, being in people's way, and all that other stuff. People can be irritated sometimes, but
Wow.
it wasn't that bad.
Okay. That's good to know. It's ironic because I feel like when I don't know if you remember, but there was a moment where across the league, I want to say it was 2 seasons ago or so, when
hmm
they weren't having any music in honor of um when they never had music or any sort of live events at basketball games.
Mm-hmm.
That to me was beyond peaceful. Like I didn't
Oh
have to
yeah.
hear everybody clap your hands. Like it's beyond the noise. They had that at the Knicks at MSG.
Oh wow.
And that to me was beautiful. That halftime, like nothing going crazy with the lights. Like if anyone has epilepsy, don't go to MSG because the lights are gonna bug you out a little bit.
Yeah. Oh wow, that sounds interesting. I will say too, by there not being fans, they had limited people on the sideline too. So
Gotcha.
where like even the photographers were in the photographers were in the stands. They weren't on the
Mm-hmm.
sidelines. So that was
Gotcha.
cool.
Gotcha. Good to know.
Yeah. But yeah, it was cool. But all right, like I said, I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. I appreciate you for having me on, man. And I'm proud of you of all the work that you've been doing. And we're only gonna go up from here.
Likewise. Thank you.
Yes.
Same here.
Thanks, Brian.
All right, take care.
You too.
Wow, what a conversation that Erika and I had. I enjoyed it. I hope you did as well. Next week, I bring on somebody new, somebody I just met. And I'm glad I had the opportunity to talk to him because he's simply making a difference in the community, and that is Reggie Calhoun Jr. Reggie is a former athlete who has now opened up his own school, RPA College, to help players prepare for life after football, as well as getting to, that top tier college to play football, but focusing on what happens for life after football. So I'm excited about that, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you have subscribed to the podcast so you will be notified when it drops. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me on this episode of Breaking Through the Glass Ceilings. And remember, do not let anyone set up a glass ceiling that you can't break through. This podcast was recorded and edited by B Waters Productions. The music by Hypno Beats. Make sure you follow him at Hypno_Beats with a Z on Instagram.